Yeah, we have attendees joining in. Hey, Cindy. Hi. Hi, Anand. Hi, Abdul. Nice to see you here. Hi, James. Yeah, we'll just wait for a couple more minutes for more people to join in. Prabhu Vishal. A lot of known faces in the attendees. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll get started. Yeah, so hi all, welcome to the Facilio webinar on Rethinking CMMS for Real Estate Game Changers. Thank you so much for joining us live today, and I hope all of you are keeping safe and well. This is Vaishnavi Murthy, and I'm part of the product marketing team at Facilio, and I will be hosting today's session. Also, a quick shout out to Mukil from our team, who, he's here to support me with polls and other logistics. Thanks, Mukil. So before we get started, I wanted to run a few housekeeping items. So the webinar, the previous slide, please. Yeah. So the webinar will be for 50 minutes, and during the course of the webinar, the participants will be muted, but we'll have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. So feel free to raise any questions or discussions in the Q&A tab, and we'll take them up in the end or whenever it's relevant. And any resources mentioned in the webinar, along with the entire session recording, will be shared with all the participants post-webinar. Yeah, so, and we have our wonderful speakers today, Prabhu Ramachandran, who is our CEO and one of the co-founders of Facilio. For those of you who don't know Prabhu here, Prabhu's career spans over 20 plus years of product, business, and customer experience focused on enterprise scale cloud and IoT solutions. And he has been leading all of us at Facilio in our commitment to enable a game-changing digital and connected experiences for real estate portfolios. And we also have with us Vishak Chandraprakash, who is our in-house solution expert. He's a natural at tailoring solutions for operations teams, and he's super passionate about adding value to our end customers. So I'm super stoked to having them both on the session today. Thank you both. And before we begin the session, here's a quick look at the agenda. We'll have a quick intro to Facilio, what we do, what is our vision to, our vision to build this really innovative operations platform. And we'll then move on to, okay, so this is the conversation we are excited to have today, where, we want to talk about the big change that has been sweeping our industry and where we stand in terms of innovation in this new digitally transformed world. So we're going to be dropping a few long known but often ignored truth bombs with the tech stack we have today. But the best part is we'll have you join the discussion with two important polls. So stay tuned for that. We want all of you to add value to the discussion we have today. We'll then move on to how we as a company are architecting the O&M innovation stack. By actually sharing our platform approach and some, insider view to some of the use cases and success stories we have had with some of the customers till now. So thanks again for joining. Over to you, Prabhu.
Yeah. Thank you, Vaishnavi. Welcome once again, all the participants, and thank you for joining us today. We'll get started. My name is Prabhu Ramachandran. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Facilio. Facilio is a prop tech company. We are offering SaaS solutions for operations and maintenance of large real estate portfolios. Broadly, our solutions helps property operations teams to deliver agile, data-driven, and connected operations. And our solution helps the leadership and executives within real estate to gain portfolio-wide visibility on their operations and also help them to make informed decisions on their operations with the insight that we provide for them in real time. Facilio's offerings today span across digitization, building analytics, control and optimization of building equipments from cloud to impact better end user experiences across a large portfolio of real estate assets. On the right, you will see some of our customers. We have customers across multiple regions, ranging from Australia, Singapore, India, parts of Middle East, Europe, UK, US, and Brazil. We are also getting into more regions. So with that quick intro, if you see the property operations, it is becoming more and more of a struggle for property operations teams to deploy their tech that they want and extract maximum value out of it. The traditional CMMS systems, they were really good a decade back. The CMMS started like a couple of decades back. And when it was started, it was predominantly around assets, building assets. How do you manage assets? How it is a system of record for assets. And that is a what part of it. The expectation itself, both from the teams and the software, were predominantly around assets. And then how they were executing is through capabilities like planning their maintenance, generating work orders, pushing them to technicians. And the who part was mostly the technicians and some level of supervisors, whereas the leadership and other stakeholders were consuming only some sort of Excel or report that is coming out of the systems. So a decade back, this is okay, but more and more it is becoming a struggle because we are seeing that more and more the businesses that are occupying the properties are moving to digital. Either it is a enterprise business or a hotel or whatever business are occupying the properties, they are moving to digital. Plus, the end users, the occupants are getting more and more digital experience on their day-to-day life. So that is setting the expectations, where the expectation today for property operations team is to deliver experience. They have to manage experience of occupants, experience of the customers. And also the property operations teams are seen as strategic part of the business, particularly after COVID. More and more, how do you open up the properties? How do you make sure it is safe for teams to come and occupy is becoming a very strategic part of it. But the CMMS is still offering the older way, which is asset driven. So the what to be delivered has increased from asset centric to now it is encompassing tenant experience, customer experience, and how do you impact the spend? How do you reduce the operational expense? So tenant experience today would include right from how tenants have digital model to raise service requests in a seamless way, in a frictionless way, to how they are able to manage that, and how do you provide transparent billing services for tenants on utilities and other consumables, to how do we impact air quality, health and wellness of tenants, how do you create communities among tenants. So it's expanding the whole tenant experience part, and the property operations teams are expected to deliver that. And the next major area is the teams are expected to create value in terms of workforce efficiency, in terms of reducing energy consumptions, and also how you can extend the life cycle of assets so that that is converting into more value in terms of dollars. And finally, how property operation teams can go and impact the valuation of the properties. So that is the what part that is expanding. Plus, how customers are doing it today beyond CAFM. They are doing automated approvals, inspections, taking care of flow of payments, rostering, reporting. All of that are being done either within more tools outside CAFM or manually. But this is how they are doing it today compared to, say, even 5 years back. And then for whom these are delivered, beyond the tenants, technicians, now there is more and more involvement of vendors. How can a real estate company or even a services company delivering FM services extract better value from vendors, manage the vendors better, benchmark against vendor? And then the next part is customers and tenant. As we spoke earlier, customers tenant has to come into the, they have to be, their experience has to be digitized. And finally, more and more C-suite leadership owners are looking at operational technology, because more and more board meetings are now talking about, beyond the sales side of real estate, more and more board meetings are talking about what is the operational efficiency, what is the NPS of tenants within these properties. All of that are now part of board discussions. So if you're not serving the tenants, that leads to churn. And if the board is not having visibility, they're not able to make great decisions. Okay, so the what has expanded, how is now a lot more than work orders and plant maintenance, and who is using it is also expanding. But the traditional legacy CMMS is still working in the older ways. That leads to the whole the CMMS trap we have today, where customers still use a CMMS, but they are augmenting with more software, more piecemeal software to solve these problems. Some problems they are going to existing ERP and building it and using that, which is typically more expensive. It takes a lot of time. Plus, they are procuring, building specialized tools for help desking, workplace management for the tenant and customers facing part. On the utilities and sustainability, customers are looking at how can they expand the BMS, how can they bring in specialized billing solutions, energy management solutions. And then part of this is still manual. They're being done, but still being done as Excel sheets, calls, all sort of communication mechanisms. And there is a heavy spend on services where customers are either building in-house teams or looking at third-party services vendors to build, to stitch all these software together. On the right image, you can see the kind of software a typical real estate company or a FM services company are using. But what is really required is a reimagined CMMS that can encompass the broader capabilities that is needed, and as in where it is required, that can go and integrate with existing systems, so that it reduces the piecemeal silos, and reimagine CMMS that can help customers to automate processes, reduce data silos, so that the overall manual work is automated, and they are able to bring it down. And finally, help customers to reduce their spend on heavy services, which is really not creating a lot of value. So that is the modern CMMS that is reimagined today. Another way of looking at this problem is if you take a simple workflow, like a tenant raises a complaint and it gets executed and closed, there are so much of things that is happening between the tenant who's raising that and from by the time it gets closed, right from inspection that is getting triggered and choosing the right vendor. If it is not an AMC, going and creating a code for payments, getting payments, and then looking at SLAs, finally completing the job. And this requires so many different tools. And you can see that there is a lot of broken manual processes. Data is getting scattered between systems. And that also brings in a lot of manual errors and display. And the reimagined CMMS would offer all of this in a seamless way if it has capability to span across or bring in not just FM operation and operations teams, span across finance, integrate with those systems, bring in third-party vendors into it, bring in management board into it, and also the tenants and customers into it. So how we are approaching this new need for CMMS, how we are reimagining the whole CMMS to digitally transform business needs.
Yeah, Prabhu, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to launch, also include, since we have I think 98 plus participants in the webinar right now, I want to make it slightly interactive because of you are also asking about whether they are muted. So we'll launch a quick poll to whatever we were discussing, related to what we were discussing till now. Mukul, I will, yeah. So we have a poll one where, so we want to know firsthand from leaders and operation stakeholders present today as to which of these aspects actually remind you, how frustrating it is that your CMMS is stuck with the old way of operations. I know different companies definitely have different ways of managing this, depending on, the maturity of the organization at that point. But which of these is draining you the most? Like, is it following up constantly with your vendors to make sure they're on track, or is it having to manually verify compliance for each and every vendor and each and every site? Or is it to ensure that all the licenses, policy, and all of those are in place? So I know the frustration is varied for different asset classes, but we want to know, understand the general sentiment here before actually proceeding and sharing inside info on how we are trying to architect it. Actually, the panelists can also answer it, but I will leave it. So Mukul, we can wait for probably a few more seconds and launch the poll results. Hi, Mutsum. Yeah, we'll be sharing the recording to all the participants if you have missed a few starting questions. Yeah, so I have a guess on how this poll is going to turn out to be, but Mukul, can we have the results? I mean, okay. Yeah, so I was pretty much expecting this result out of the poll. I mean, even before the start of the session, Prabhu and I were discussing. I just inserted all of the above option here just to, because I was thinking that a lot of people might have 2 or 3 or more of these problems with the current CMMS. Okay, but before even, this also leads us to our next poll before I, pass on the mic to Prabhu. So we know the banes of, the CMMS scope restrained to asset and technician focus. We are seeing, we're also validating this with these numbers that we are seeing on screen right now. But we also want to understand how are different organizations counteracting this issue. What models are, organizations following as a stopgap or compensating for the lack of innovation in CMMS today? So we want you to choose, which of these approaches that you most or maximum rely on for other solutions, other expanded digitally transformed needs that you have today, which you're not able to, satisfy with your current CMMS. It could be you're having manual methods. It could be you are just purchasing, whatever software that you need to create a stopgap solution for that moment. Or you could probably be building custom solutions in a time when you could be spending the time to, serve your customers, or it could be a mix of all the above. Or if there's a method that you're following apart from all of these, please feel free to drop in a chat. And if possible, Mukul, we can present both these poll results side by side for a few moments for all of us to take it in, if possible. Otherwise, we can just launch the result of this poll. Okay. Okay, so I'm not very sure about the previous poll's correct percentage, but Prabhu, I think this general sentiment is that people are having all of the above problems with the frustrations with the limitations of CMMS that are there today, and they are compensating it with a mix of all of the above, which is like they are also building manual methods, they are also purchasing a few software to fix those gaps, and they're also building custom solutions in-house. Yeah, so I will let you take it from here.
Yeah. Thanks again for everyone taking the polls. We'll move to how we Facilio is approaching this problem and addressing it. Yeah. So before we talk about how we are doing it, I'll just summarize what we saw earlier. So if you look at the responsibilities of operations and maintenance teams, that is evolving fast and expanding into tenant experience and other aspects. So today, property operations teams are broadly thinking about these three aspects. How do they bring operational excellence? They are looking at like internal models in terms of team structure, talents to equip themselves, striving towards agile operations, looking at better margins. Then the next part is customer satisfaction. Customers here are tenants and occupants. How can we create transparency for tenants so that they're able to reduce the friction with tenants, keep them happy, they are extending their contracts, they're staying there. And then how do we create internal visibility and roll out proactive services for tenants? Finally, both real estate owners and FM service providers are looking at new value that they can create for customers, new services. Examples could be like more and more air quality, health and wellness of tenants, sustainability management as a service. All of these are becoming common new services that are being offered by both owners and the service providers. Okay. So to keeping this in mind, so what we have done is we have reimagined the whole CMMS with broadly two aspects in mind. One is how do we involve multiple relevant stakeholders to be part of this whole tech stack, not just field level technician, supervisor using it, and then others only getting some sort of Excel PDFs. So how can we involve the right stakeholder in a contextual manner? That is one key aspects of how we are approaching this. And also, how do we bring automation first platform? There is so much of processes, workflows that we can automate within operations that can create a lot of value in terms of saving money, saving time, and reducing friction. So with that, so if you look at our tech stack, the bottom one is what a traditional CMMS would do, asset management, vendor, service management. But one thing, what we have done from day one is make sure that most of these capabilities are delivered as contextual mobile apps for technicians, for vendors, for tenants, for leadership, very, very contextual mobile apps so that they are able to do most of the work they want to do without being stationed in a desktop. And beyond that, like on top of that, what we are building is an automation layer. Functionally, this layer underlyingly consists of process automation module, a no-code platform, a rule engine that powers modules like capabilities like workflow, approval workflows automation, compliance automation, the whole accounting process automation. We ourselves don't do accounting, but right from generating codes, invoices, passing it through the right set of approvals, mechanisms to payments, there is so much of things that can be automated. And then how do you look at resource scheduling in terms of both workforce and the spaces and assets, rostering. We have a very good inbuilt real estate specific reporting and analytic modules that is not generic, that has tons of templated reports, dashboards, analytics that we deliver for customers. So this layer on top of the base KFM covers the automation part, and then on top of that we have this whole contextual intelligence layer, which is where we are involving new stakeholders like tenants, occupants, and leadership. And this has capabilities like tenant portals, customer portals, communication modules, feedback mechanisms, and single pane of decision view, a set of scoring dashboard modules specifically meant for leadership, so that they are able to, at any point in time, they have visibility across different aspects like customer satisfaction, sustainability, workforce efficiency, and all of that. So all of this together helps us to deliver more value and experience across the board, across portfolio. So this is the reimagined CMMS. We strongly believe that this is a necessity today. This is not like far ahead in terms of what innovation customers are looking at. This is a basic necessity that is missing in the market. We are delivering. But beyond that, where is the future? What more customers can deliver, and how we can help them? So what we have done is, on top of this, we have added an IoT layer where we have built capabilities to go and seamlessly integrate with existing automation systems, existing sensors. They could be HVAC systems, BMS, fire safety system, water pumping system, access control, security cameras, and the modern IoT sensors like air quality, people movement sensors. We have capability to integrate and collect operational data. So we are able to deliver applications like automated alarm management, and then converting that into work orders for earlier problem detection, condition-based monitoring. We are seeing more and more of air quality and comfort monitoring for tenants in terms of HVAC, impact of cost on what tenants are doing, like what is the cost of not having ambient temperatures. All of these are calculated, and we have a root cause engine that can look at all these data and help technicians with root cause analysis of the problem, so that they're able to solve that faster. So this is how we see customers, where customers deploy the basic KFM, and then they start using our workflow automation and the contextual intelligence layer. Once that is done, customers are looking at how can they go and integrate with their existing automation systems and create more value. But we also understand that change management is very, very difficult for the customers, because the CAFM systems are very, very sticky and very important part of the business. It's not very easy to go and replace an existing CAFM for customers. So what we have thought that change management as a problem, and what we have done is we have a model where the underlying CAFM could be a legacy existing CAFM from any vendor, and we are doing integration with those CAFM for creating work orders, accessing information from that. And that integrations could be based on what level of support and sophistication the underlying CAFM does. But we have multiple models of integration, right from APIs to database access to Excel sheet and other formats. But we can integrate, and whereas in this model, customers can continue with the legacy, but take advantage of our orchestration platform, take advantage of our tenant customer portals, and start using our executive modules for real-time visibility, and also use our IoT part of this products. So this enables a very seamless movement for customers, so that it is not like a sudden shift. Customers can safeguard their existing investment and gradually move to this model. Okay. So with this, we are coming to an end of what is our offering. Next, I will ask our colleague Vishaks to walk through a couple of real-world examples of how some of our customers are deploying these 4 layers of stack that we have and creating value for them. Over to you, Vishak.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So over the next couple of slides, I'll be talking about how Facilio goes beyond traditional O&M operations, traditional CMMS, and how clients are benefiting from this sort of new age approach in terms of automating workflows and providing additional value. So yeah, so this next slide really talks about how Facilio, the platform, enables improvements in terms of overall customer experience and enhances customer value. So one, we're able to automate and digitize current manual processes that are taking place across multiple siloed automation tools. And this one reduces human error. It is able to improve overall workforce efficiency. And since we're digitizing all of these processes that take place across multiple tools in a single platform, we're able to bring in tremendous visibility to not only the people on the ground, but also to leadership teams, so that they can start taking better decisions in terms of managing their entire portfolio. And we're able to bring in all the stakeholders involved into a single platform, not just the technicians on the ground, but also subcontractors or vendors who are performing specific activities, whether it's the tenants who are requesting for specific services. Everybody is part of the overall O&M process, and we're able to add value every step of the way. And since we're digitizing all of this data into a single place, we're also enabling better decision-making in terms of asset management itself. So not only understanding what the real-time asset health is, but we can also understand what the overall upkeep cost of that asset is, what is the asset lifecycle metrics, and therefore leadership teams can take decisions in terms of repair, replacement, etc. And by going to that next level, using IoT, like Prabhu mentioned in the previous slide, we can help teams move to a more proactive approach in terms of maintenance by predicting faults in advance, automating things like energy billing, utility billing for tenants, and basically moving from that manual alarm management and triage to a more automated fashion, where technicians are able to understand the root cause of a particular problem even before they go to the site, so they can optimize workforce efficiency. So if I go to the next slide here, this is a specific client that I wanted to talk about in detail. So they're a leading property management company out of Australia, and they are managing more than 600 vendors, and they had more than 25 sites that they were looking at across the portfolio. And their tech stack was ERD for vendor management. They were using a separate software called SASE for vendor compliance management, health and safety tracking, insurance tracking, etc. And they were using a separate platform from Knight Frank for tenant service requests. And since they were using so many siloed tools, teams have to shift through all of this data. So all that data was scattered. Creating reports and dashboards, etc., was really difficult. So leadership teams do not have visibility into what is happening. And therefore, the actual time taken to complete a certain activity took along like 3 additional days for them to actually go from tenant request creation to actually starting and assigning that work out to a certain vendor. They took 3 days to figure out if that vendor had the relevant compliance to actually work on that activity. So if you come over to the right-hand side here, this is the solution that we offer, right? So through the Facilio platform, we're able to connect all the stakeholders involved in the process, and that drove improvements in terms of overall SLA adherence. We're able to automate compliance checks, and therefore we're able to also provide visibility to the leadership teams, to the property management teams as to what is happening, so they could take decisions in terms of either renewing an AMC contract with a vendor or replacing that vendor if they're not up to scale in terms of what they were actually going to deliver, right? So this next slide talks a little bit more in detail about one particular workflow where there was a work order that was raised by a tenant. The information was, the actual vendor information was within ERD. So a person had to physically log into ERD, look at what the scope of that activity was, and figure out which vendor had to be assigned to this, and then delve into another software platform called SASE to understand if that particular vendor had the relevant insurance documentation, the relevant licenses to actually work on that particular activity, if the relevant safe work permit reports were available. And then they had to manually call that vendor up, and that vendor was using a separate platform. So all of these 600 vendors were using different software platforms of their own to go and actually perform that actual maintenance activity. So the reports that they generated out of that had to then again be reconciled on this site. So there was a lot of manual workflow, and this took a lot of time for the actual operations teams. So what we then did was, using the right side here, automated as much as we could in terms of creating that work order to then assigning it to that vendor. So when a tenant raises that work request, they did it on Facilio's tenant portal. This then automatically assigned it to a vendor based on a selection process in terms of what is the scope of the activity, and if that vendor had the relevant licenses and certifications to actually work on that specific workflow. And that vendor was then receiving a notification. They were able to go to the site, and ancillary processes like quotation management, invoicing, etc., was also taken care of in the background. And once the work was completed, we were then able to send a notification to the tenant using the tenant portal of Facilio, and they were able to see, hey, that work is resolved now, and they were able to enter their feedback in terms of the services that this property management team was providing. So we were able to automate almost the entire process, making it much more easier for operation teams to actually sort of start serving customers in a better fashion, and of course, improve overall client experience as well. So the next use case talks about how we went to the next level and started leveraging real-time data from the assets that are there across the portfolio through IoT. Right. So this is for a leading FM services and energy management company out of the United Kingdom, and they were managing 150 properties across the UK. And a lot of their clients had different BMS systems. Some had Honeywell, some had Schneider Electric, some had Johnson Control Systems. And they had really skilled technicians on the field who were using SkySpark to manage their fault detection diagnostic rules. And they were using ticketing systems like Zendesk. So whenever a particular client raised a work order, it came through as a ticket on Zendesk, and they were doing all the reporting manually. So the problem here was, technicians were spending a lot of time creating reports, etc. So they're doing non-revenue generating tasks, and technicians are very costly administrators, right? So they were spending close to £200,000, this particular company, on a yearly basis, because technicians are spending 2 days a week in just creating these reports, creating those BMS site surveys, etc., into Excel, and then sending those across to clients. So what we then did was, using the Facilio platform, we were able to connect to all of their existing client systems. So all the BMS systems were then integrated with. And then we were able to also integrate with their ticketing system, Zendesk. So we then, instead of a ticket being generated every time there was a BMS alarm, we added a level of intelligence to that. So we are able to use Facilio's fault detection diagnostic root cause analysis engines to figure out what is the actual root cause of the issue. So the technician, even before he went to the site, had information into what is a particular problem, which floor he had to go to, what was the fix that he had to do. So he went there with the relevant tools and spares necessary. So the workforce efficiency dramatically improved, first time fix rates dramatically improved. And this also affected asset performance as well, because assets were taken care of in a more proactive fashion. And there was also visibility into future requirements in terms of workforce, because they were not constantly firefighting, and they were able to better plan in terms of what the actually next steps were. So on that note, what I'll do is I'll just take a few minutes to jump into the Facilio platform itself and talk about another use case, which was specifically tuned for leadership teams. So we are integrating data across multiple stakeholders are coming into the platform. They're all interacting with the system. It can be the tenants, it can be the vendors, it can be subcontractors. So how do leadership teams benefit from all the data being in a single place, right? So if I jump into this particular product, so this is Facilio's operational visibility product. This is really built for leadership teams to make decisions in terms of what is happening across the portfolio in a really easy manner. So for example, here we're scoring properties at scale. So we're figuring out what the overall tenant satisfaction score is, what the maintenance score of that certain property is. And then we're benchmarking the actual performance of properties across the portfolio. So the leadership can figure out where they have to focus. And let's say if the tenant score dips in a certain property, they can drill down within Facilio itself, since all the data is in a single place, to figure out where they can improve experience and where they can add additional value to that particular tenant, so they're able to minimize churn, right? So if I go on further, and I can jump into the actual asset health dashboards as well. So here we have the building performance rating. And if I get into asset health and asset performance, this is going to give me overall asset performance metrics of a particular building. So we're scoring asset performance based on certain KPIs that make sense to that organization. So we have a KPI builder, report builder, etc. And all of these reports can be tailor-made to that particular organization. So here we're looking at what the overall reliability of that asset is and what are the most unreliable or failure-prone assets, so that leadership teams can take decisions in terms of repair and replacement really easily. And we're highlighting what are the worst performing assets in terms of what the highest cost of upkeep was, what the lowest asset health score was, so that teams can look into those assets and then, let's say, replace a particular component or refurbish that asset entirely. And if I get into the O&M visibility dashboards, this is aggregating data again across the portfolio in terms of what was the compliance of planned activities, what is the SLA adherence, how are vendors performing, and how can they then improve or optimize their operations and provide better services. So we're aggregating data across all of these metrics and giving insight into what is happening. And we can also jump into tenant satisfaction, for example. And this highlights, for example, what the overall requests that were coming in were and how satisfied the tenants actually are, because we're capturing feedback for each of these activities that this team is doing on the field. And we're able to take a look at response, resolution, SLA events, and so on. So this is just a taste of what Facilio can do and what value we can add by having all the data in a single place and optimizing operations at scale. So I think we can jump into the Q&A session. We can answer any questions that all of you might have, and we can take things from there. So back to you, Ramesh.
Yeah. So so please raise any questions in the Q&A tab so we can pick one by one. Yeah, so we have a question already. Prabhu, we have a question on how does Facilio support the operations and maintenance phase while working around existing constraints? I think they're talking about like if you have an existing software, like if they have a CMMS already, or if they have a set of software purchases already made, then how can they work around their existing constraints to go towards what they want to achieve?
Yeah, the way we do this is the whole stack of modules that we have within Facilio. They are all very, very modular and API driven, so that if there is an existing system, say an ERP that has inventory, we can integrate and pick up inventory information from that. We can integrate with a system like Yardi or an existing CMMS like Maximo or FSI to go and push work orders to them. And then on top of that, we can apply our modules that customer wants. Like the customer is specifically looking at improving tenant experience by providing digital experience for tenants. So our tenant portal can be used. The tenant portal can go and integrate with other systems. So it's very modular. It's not necessary that all the complete stack has to be deployed from day one. Customers can start with part of it and gradually expand as they progress.
Yeah, I'll also link our integrations page to your answer to me. So you can take a look at our integrations page where we have a set of out of the box integrations available with some common software and business apps, building automation, and all sort of software. We already have done it for our past customers. So that's
And there is one question from Stephen. Is there a BAS that most easily integrates with the Facilio? And next question is there a max and minimum property size that would benefit or make sense for implementation? Great question. With automation integration, the approach that we are following is we are integrating at the protocol level. We go and support protocols like BACnet, Modbus, OPCs, and a bunch of other protocols, so that we have very less dependency on the vendors themselves. We are not even depending on the BMS, it's more on the protocol level. So far, we have integrated with like dozens of different BMS systems. That is for the first question. The second one is what size of properties? Product is the way we deliver and way it works. You can also use it for a single property, but what we are seeing is larger distributed portfolios where the problems are more aggravated. So that is where we are seeing a lot of traction, value that customers can quickly see. The moment you have a dozen of different buildings or few million square feet, anywhere above 3-4 million square feet, is where whatever problem we are talking about, the silos and all of things gets really aggravated, and those set of customers can see a lot of value from using Facilio.
Yeah. So we have another question from Khatib Khan, who's asking, can the system fetch data from SAP and display on the tenant portal? Does your system provide accounting support?
Yes. So personally, I haven't come across this integration, but what we have is we have an integration with multiple means to go and integrate. We have REST API based integration, Java API based integration. We can also do like crude level of Excel downloads and automatically reading that and taking it. We have done that. And we can also go and integrate with database level. So it depends, like if any of these are supported with this product, we can go and integrate. And the tenant portal, in many cases, tenant portal actually goes and integrate with multiple systems because it requires, there could be like vendor information in one system like Yardi, and tenant information could be from others. So we have done a lot of integration. Ours is not an accounting software. We will go and integrate with other accounting systems like Tally or a QuickBooks or maybe in real estate Yardi kind of systems. Ours is not an accounting software. So next question from Steve, where will you be using APIs to join digital solutions together in future? Yes, we are already doing it. I'll ask Vaishnavi to share the list of integrations that we have already done as part of a follow-up that we are going to send, where we have done a bunch of integration with other business software, right from ERPs to accounting systems to collaboration tools like even Slack or Microsoft Chat to a business software like ticketing solutions or IT service management solutions. So all of these are driven by our APIs. So we are building a library of integrations as we progress. Next question from Praveen. Is there a provision for IoT network within your existing platform? No, we are not providing any IoT networking solution as such, but as part of our partner ecosystems, we have partnered with some really innovative companies that are providing specialized networking solutions for real estate. So they go and set up a network, secure the network, and we go and sit on top of that. And that could be like a private IT network. There could be a private BMS network. We have custom like partners who are doing it. We ourselves are not into networking. Yeah. If your system is not an accounting system, how would we be able to bill the tenants? Yeah, good question. Within our systems, we have the ability to go and create quotes, invoices based on different aspects, based on if there is a spare parts that is required for a job, and we can go and pick up the value of the spare parts and raise a invoice for it. And if there is something out of a regular AMC and we have to bill it based on number of hours spent or based on the skill plus hours, we have all these models built into the platform so that we are able to come up with what is the payment invoice to be generated. And then we can generate that invoice into other systems. We have integrations into like QuickBooks or Tallies or Zoho invoice kind of systems where we can go and raise these invoices. But within the product, there is capability to go and calculate what is the cost based on time, effort, spare parts, and all of that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah. So you can see that these are the accounting products we're integrating.
Yeah. So the integration page has like, category based apps for which we have out of the box integration support as of now. But if you have an existing software that is different from the list available here, please reach out to us and
Yeah.
we'll see if we can support that.
Yeah. So next question has come in. What is the typical time to deploy Facilio, including integration support? So if it depends. Like if you're looking at the CAFM plus workflow automation, that is usually like a month or two, based on again deployment size and how soon customers are able to share information. If for a size of say a 5 million square feet across a couple of dozen of properties, if it is a CAFM only deployment with a few workflow automation, we are talking about like 2 months time. And then if there are more workflows that are being automated, what we do is we enable customers to go live, and then we have a next phase where we go and automate more workflows. And if integration with existing automation systems is involved, that can be done parallel. And that is like we are looking at 2 to 3 months of time on an average. And larger the portfolio, what customers are doing it, because it is a change requirement, not just for Facilio alone, but for customers, they have to educate their tenants, they have to educate their vendors. So they are taking in stage approach where they would go with like 3 to 4 million at every quarter, and then they go and deploy it at a larger numbers.
Yeah. So Martin is also following up with the integration to SAP and the invoicing automation, payment automation part of it. I will have this noted. Maybe we can have a separate session to talk about how we can automate specific workflows. We actually have done this accounting and invoicing automation for one of the customers, actually two of the customers, I think, for Bright FM and Quality FM, leading FM vendors in UAE. So we should be able to, explain the actual workflow. But Vishak, do you want to add something here?
Yes. So for those clients, what we did was we basically, like Martin said, we can track maintenance costs, and whenever there is a requirement to raise a quotation or an invoice, we can send that to the tenant using the tenant portal. Tenants can approve that, and it can then go back to the FM teams, and we can then send that downstream into that ERP. So we can integrate with SAP for that invoice creation, but it can also be done through any other software platform. It can be like DRD or QuickBooks, etc. So we can not only, yeah.
And we also have a webinar, like we did a webinar with Balaji from Bright FM just before this webinar. I'll just link that webinar here, Martin. So actually he takes time to explain how they have automated using Facilio a couple of workflows to make it easier for them to serve their customers. Just link the webinar, or all of our webinars are listed in this place. I mean this page. I'll just link that so we can take a look at that.
Yeah, next question from Abhinav. Does the system work seamlessly with different vendor BMS, CMS? Yes, as I explained earlier, we are integrating at protocol level, and mostly we are not actually going integrating with the BMS software itself. It's mostly with the network level. We go and integrate with the controllers, sensors to pick up data. And when we are integrating with BMS or specifically to pick up alarms quickly, we have a layer on top of that. We are not directly creating that alarms into our Workader because there is a lot of false positive. We take that alarm and we have a correlation mechanism built within Facilio to look at what are the right set of alarms and probably do some root cause analysis with our FDD if possible. And then we are creating tickets into it so that there is very, very less false alarms there. What is the delay between BMS alarm, Facilio flagging? Very, very minimal because it's all real time. We do change our value so that in case if there is if it's an error or alarm, we receive immediately, we correlate and then raise it. We are not doing alarms alone is not like every 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Alarms are immediately picked up and acted upon. Next one regarding spare parts. How would the system operator know they are getting bang for the buck? I'm not sure whether I understood this. On spare parts, we have a inventory and store module where you can load up all your spare parts. You can load the value, and if a job requires spare parts, a technician can place a request, and different people can approve based on whether somebody has to approve for the price and whatever. And once that is done, we generate a gate pass for the technician to go and pick it up from the store, so that there is complete digital trace. Uh, and then we keep a record on, we go and analyze like how much of spare parts is being utilized in each buildings. If there is something abnormal that is happening, we can alert customer that this particular spare parts is getting over consumed in this building compared to other.
Yeah. So we are actually nearing closing time. We'll take a couple of last final questions, Prabhu.
Yeah.
So Laksh, thanks Laksh for the compliment. So he's asking if the product is designed to assist stakeholders with their sustainability ratings, GREST, and other indexes from the market. Yeah.
Yes. So what we do with from Facilio is we do the hard job of going and collecting utility information from different places. It could be like meters. In case of meters, we can collect automated, or we have apps for somebody to go and input, take pictures, input. So that is the harder part. And then we have a layer of a mechanism to validate the data. Even meters give wrong information. So we have a layer that goes and works on this data and flags wrong data. So there is a cleaner data of utility. That is the first step. From there, we do measurement and verifications, energy saving measures as one part. And then there is a energy reporting, dashboarding mechanism that is the second. And finally, we have ready-made integration with, say, Energy Star in US. We are yet to do GREST, but we are working on it. So we have a library of such integration that we are building. Energy Star is already live, and we are working on few other systems. We have already integrated with ArcScoru, which is the IGBC rating systems, where from Facilio, we can automatically share the data there, and we can get the ARC rating for the buildings.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for answering all of the questions. So I think we are nearing our closing time. Sorry about some of the questions that have been left unanswered, but I'll make sure to run them through after the webinar. And if there are any unanswered, I'll just run them with the panelists and send them to you to your inbox. So two things. One is, so if at all you have any specific queries on how Facilio can solve problems in your particular organization, this is our, like people you can contact at any point in time. Just shoot them an email, and we'll be ready to, tailor a specific demo to your use case. Or we have a, survey after this webinar. Please answer the survey as in if you have a specific workflow that you want us to show in our upcoming webinars, please share feedback on which of the workflows that you want us to take first. So we'll look forward to your survey results. And yeah, thank you so much. I think it was a very, very interactive session today. Thanks, Prabhu. Thanks, Vishak. And thanks to everyone who came in. Great engagement. And we promise to send over the session recording to all of you after it's over. And thank you so much for joining. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys.